Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for your attendance tonight. This is the Hillhurst traffic calming meeting. This is the technically the second meeting. So you may have seen some information about what we're going to talk about for the traffic calming project. You may not. I'm going to kind of treat it as though you haven't. And so we'll go from that. But we'll go fairly quickly through some of the items here in the preliminary stage and really focus on what I think is the meat of the presentation, the draft plan for the traffic calming project. If I can get there we go. Next slide. So the traffic calming program really deals with or there's 3 E's, I guess I should say, when it comes to traffic speed and managing traffic speeds. There's education. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, though. If you're coming to learn about traffic calming, you've probably experienced some high speeds on Hillhurst and interested in how to lower those. So education for you guys is probably not a big thing, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir in a church setting, oddly enough. Secondly, the enforcement aspect of it. It's very important. We all wish there was MMPD was down there with radars, just being a deterrent for speeding. Everybody would like to have that, but we all know MMPD's got their hands full. They're doing a big job with limited resources like everybody, and so there's just not a lot of time to have police enforcement for speeding activity as much as we would like all the time. And so we at with NDOT are focused on the public right-of-way, and this is the engineering side of it. And so these are the things that we can control, changes to the street and speed limits and those types of things. So that's what this program is really focused on. And before I get any deeper, I'm remiss in introducing myself, and I'm really sorry about that. My name is Jeff Hammond. I'm with a group called Birch Transportation. We are a consultant for Nashville Department of Transportation, NDOT. It was formerly the old Public Works Department. Same group, just called a different name. And we certainly appreciate Councilwoman Toombs putting this together and her advocacy and all of council and really stressing the importance of this program with traffic calming. We know it's a citywide issue, and council has been very good to us in terms of funding for this program. This is a residential street program. We're really not focused on some of the major arterials or even major collectors. All streets in Nashville are classified as one of those 3. It's either an arterial, which is the big roads like Dickerson, a collector, which is a little bit lower, maybe like Ewing Drive, or a local street like Hillhurst. So we're really focused on those lower classification streets, because that's where you live. That's where you're walking and you're even just checking your mail and all of those things where high speeds can affect you. That's what we try to bring to bear, some improvements to help those situations. This is a very popular program. It is very much in demand. Twice a year we have application windows, and we pick 25 neighborhoods out of those. You guys were selected about a year ago. I think this was the summer 2021 selection, so which is not unusual. We have some that are we're trying to wrap them up, and y'all are certainly one of those, but you're not alone in that. And but we select 25 at a time out of a huge pool of applications. This past one that we just got through selecting on had over 400 streets were applied for, and so Hillhurst is one of those. And so congratulations. And I'm sorry all at the same time, because if you got selected, that means you were in the upper echelon of some problems that we have noticed. So we'll talk about those. It is a competitive process in that when you apply in for your street, we go out and we start collecting data. And so this information this selection and this work is based on technical data that we collect. And we look at 4 things. We look at pedestrian destinations. Are there schools, are there parks, are there places to walk to? What are your pedestrian accommodations like? Do you have bike lanes? Do you have transit service? Do you have sidewalks? You guys do have sidewalks, which puts you're a little better than a lot of neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks. That actually lowers your score. So y'all were selected in spite of having sidewalks. The third thing we look at is actual speed. Obviously, we measure the speed. And then the fourth thing is crashes. How many crashes? A lot of times that may not be crashes. You guys probably don't see a lot of crashes on your street in front of your driveway, but you probably do at Dickerson, maybe at Ewing. So you've gotten kind of rolled into that for some higher crash numbers. And so those are the things that we look at. And then we rank all of those and make those selections accordingly. So the street that we're looking at is Hillhurst. This is from an application that you all provided to the department back then. We think this is, and I'm on the next slide, I'm on the map slide. This is a pretty classic case, we think, of kind of cut-through traffic or traffic that's trying to avoid other situations. This is Hillhurst, so I don't have my pointer out, but this the little semicircle there, you all probably recognize it. And over here is Dickerson, and where it goes to Ewing, right here where it says corner music, you see how it gets orange. This is Google's typical traffic map, which I like a lot and use it often because you can pick any time of the day and it shows you typical traffic speeds. So the more orange or red it is, the slower things are. You're probably used to seeing this if you use your phone or Waze or something like that. And green is better. And so you can see if you're going north, headed out of town, and this is about 4:20 in the afternoons, headed north, what happens? It begins backing up, and it backs up just about to Hillhurst. And so that makes a real convenient place. If you were going to go up to that signal and turn left, you know, Hillhurst makes a really nice diversion for you to get around that signal and that congestion. And so we look for things like that, and that kind of becomes part of our selection process too, to say, you know, can we fix this problem with some traffic calming devices? And so that's a pretty textbook case of what we see at intersections around town, more major intersections. So a little bit about what we are planning to do. We're going to get into the details of what speed cushions are, but for this neighborhood, we are planning to install 7 sets of speed cushions. And you can see roughly how we lay those out. They're spaced at somewhere around 400 to 600 feet apart. We know by doing that, we can get a good, consistent, slow movement that's close enough that cars won't speed up in between. Most cars won't. You still have some that probably will, but it'll solve the lion's share of the problem for sure. And at the same time, that's not too close to be onerous and push traffic to other streets. We don't see a lot of diversion. This is not really a grid-type neighborhood. There may not be really good other streets to move to. And so, but in any case, we like to have that spacing. We know that gives us really good slow movement along the street. So speed cushions, what are they? These are, has everybody seen these and encountered them? Okay, so you're familiar with them. More than likely, the ones that you've seen are exactly the ones that we're going to use. Metro has a vendor, it's called TrafficLogix, and we are now buying all of our speed management products from them. So, and that's one of the reasons we really like it. We know what we're going to get. It's different than in the other jurisdictions or in other times. We may have built these with asphalt or concrete, and that's got some advantage to it, but one of the big disadvantages is you can't always control what comes out the back of that truck. You know, here we can, and so it's a very consistent product. They're all made the same way. They all perform the same way. It is preformed rubber pads. They're about 4 inches tall. They're about 7 inches long, 6 inches wide. And we put these gaps in them. The reason they're called cushions is because they look like little pillows laying on the road, and that gap, as you see there on the right, is to help facilitate emergency vehicle traffic. So a wider wheelbase vehicle, they can't straddle it all the way, but if you can, I'll show you some pictures here, and you can see it right there. They taper down on the edges. So if they can't straddle it all the way, they can at least go on a lower part of that traffic, that speed cushion, and get to where they're going. But we had very good performance from these. We get very good outcomes. So that's what is planned. I've got some other pictures, a little more close up. Your street looks a lot like the top left-hand corner. It's about 21 to 23 feet wide. There's a little bit of variation in the width of the asphalt. It does have, I guess, well, maybe it's more like the bottom left-hand corner because it does have a center line there, and so we would straddle that with those speed cushions. Of course, none of these have sidewalk, which yours also has. That doesn't really change anything for us. They'll still center up in the middle of the lanes very nicely there. You all said you're familiar with these, so but this is a little video, if it will run. It did just a second ago. There it goes. So you can see, you know, speeds are slower right at the speed cushion device. Most cars will probably hit that at, you know, I would guess 10 to 15 miles an hour and then speed back up. But again, not speed up beyond 20 to 25 miles an hour. That's what we rate this device at 15 to 20. But then it's not uncommon to see 25 kind of midway in between those speed cushions. That's at a street over we just installed a few weeks ago over in the Green Hills area. So next steps, and I'll be glad to stop at any time if y'all want to talk about the design or have questions or anything like that. Yes, sir, go ahead. Sure.
The one sign that there's people, I noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, you know, in Hillhurst, some of that people, they're just not reading. They're not reading. They'll run through right there in this house. They'll run through that stop sign, go 30, 40 miles per hour, and it's a four-way stop. But if they put those people there, we would have something outside of just riding, maybe a beeping caution light, you know, for a while. The people that travel that road will get used to it, you know, that we look for. It's not reading it.
Yeah. We have not needed that in the past. And by the way, the question is, will there be something in addition to signs or maybe at least the signs themselves to indicate this change, that there are speed cushions here before that have not been? We typically don't find the need to do that. The first time cars drive across it, they kind of get it. You know, probably the first time they hit the speed bump. We do the signs. And in fact, we do signs at about every location. So there will be plenty of signs indicating that. The speed cushions themselves are also marked. You may have noticed if you could go back just a couple of slides, right? Well, you see it right there. That double arrow pattern is reflective. So you do see that at night. And you know, and we find the markings, you're right, people don't read signs as much as they pay attention to markings. We know that. That's why a stop bar is required and a stop sign is not always even required. But we know the markings are a big part of that. And so, yeah, that has worked well for us. If we have a need where we say people are hitting this first speed cushion way too fast, and maybe it's because they don't know it's there, we can always look into that further. Sure.
How expensive is this business just a solar tax? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Metro does use those. They use those a lot when, well, they have some that are just like at a curve, you know, a dangerous curve, and it just flashes all the time. I'm going to hazard a guess. I probably shouldn't, but it's on the order of, I would say, $4,000 or $5,000 for a unit to do that. They've got big battery packs. I mean, those things can go with without sun for 30 days and all that kind of stuff. They're pretty beefy. So. Anything else on the design? Pretty straightforward design. This is a typical residential suburban context road, and we do these regularly, so we don't have many concerns about it. Sure. Good question. So the question is, how do we place those? It wouldn't be in front of a driveway or something like that. No, that's absolutely right. We keep a minimum of 15 feet. A lot of times in areas like this, you guys have bigger lots, and we can get further away than that even. So we get those as far away from driveways, mailboxes. We're watching for manholes. We're watching for cuts on the street where they may have done a utility cut and had to patch. We're watching for hills. We're watching for curves. We're doing our best to maintain that spacing and yet avoid those types of things as well. Yeah, those are something we really pay attention to. If you know of any place that gets water on the road that's ponding, we don't want to set up in an area that happens to be ponding. So let us know if you've got issues like that. And by the way, we do have a more detailed set of plans. If you're interested in seeing exactly where we're thinking these would go, we can share that with you and talk through that with you as well. So the next steps, this is the other big important part of what we wanted to talk about tonight was, well, where do we go from here? Because traffic calming is different than any other infrastructure project for sure, and different than a lot of other projects in Metro, where we actually ask the residents on the street to let us know what they think about it. There is it was called a petition process, and one of y'all would have gone out and gone door to door and tried to get 70% of your neighbors. That recently changed just a few weeks ago. Y'all will be one of the early neighborhoods to go to the new process, and it's actually a ballot process. One of the drawbacks to the petition was people may not have signed a petition, and we didn't know if that meant they just weren't home, they weren't interested, they were actually opposed to it. We didn't know. So now at least we'll know, if people are approving of the idea or are not too keen on the idea, do a ballot process. So let me talk a little bit about that. Let me catch up here. All right, so the ballot process, if you can go to the next slide. Here's how this is going to work. You're not going to have to go door to door anymore. Nobody has to do that, and that's really a welcome thing. We had a lot of neighborhoods that had toiled long and hard trying to get these, and it was a tall order for sure. And so NDOT has appreciated that and has made some changes to the program because of it. So now what it is NDOT Metro is going to send out postcards to everyone on the street. Everyone that's eligible to vote. We'll look at that in a second. When you get your postcard, there's a QR code on it. You're going to scan that code, and it's going to take you to a balloting page. It's a Nashville.gov balloting page where all you really need is your name and address, and do you vote approve of it or not. There'll also be links on there, like if you want to see the plans, you can go and view the plans. Anyone can. Our goal is to make it every bit of information available so that it's all online and they can learn anything they want to about the program before they vote. But we're also always here for questions and so forth. So you'll do the ballot at the end of 6 weeks. We'll close the ballot, and if 66%, this part's important, if 2/3 of the responding homeowners are in favor, we'll order the materials and do the project. So that's different in the past where it's been 70% of everybody, every homeowner. Now it's 66% of the people that actually respond. Okay. I'm sorry. Only the responses count, yes or no. So if 10% of your street votes, we're going to make this decision based on the 10% of the people that voted. Okay, just like a real election. If you don't vote, you're not counted. The other important part of that is homeowners. I said that. So one of the issues we were having a lot of times was, people are renting on the street. The landlord's not here. We can't get a signature from that person. We have no idea where they are. They may live in another state. That's still true, but the cards that we're going to send out are going to actually go to the registered homeowner's address. It may not come to the street itself. You know what I mean? So if the homeowner lives in California, that card is going to make its way across the country to California, and they're going to vote for traffic calming in Nashville. Okay. So we still may not get a response from those people. and that's okay. They won't count. They won't hold up this process. That's been one of our big hangups. So we've had projects, you know, out there for months because we literally can't get to 70 because we don't have that many homeowners that we can contact. So that's why this is a big change here. Any questions on that balloting process? I wish you would. And I would say the same thing if someone was not friendly to it. Advocate, and because we won't turn out. Metro's position in this, I think I'm right in saying this, is that we want to help the neighborhood do what the neighborhood wants to do. And if everyone here is in favor of traffic calming, we want to help you get that, while at the same time making sure all your neighbors know about it and have a chance to weigh in as well. Yeah. So one of the things we're concerned about with this change is, will we lose that neighborhood advocate who has been going door to door and saying, you know, don't you think we need to slow traffic down? Well, here's an opportunity to do something. We kind of lose that. But we don't really, if anyone is interested in going door to door and saying, hey, you got a card in the mail, we just want to make sure you take the time to vote and all that kind of thing. So absolutely, we would love advocacy, you know, to explain this to people and share this information and get them to vote. Good question.
Speed bumps.
Yes, sir. It is speed cushions that will slow traffic down. You may have seen them in some other neighborhoods. Yeah.
Property owners on that street will be notified.
That's right.
I don't live on the Hillhurst, but we do it every time we go home.
Okay.
But I get a notice.
You will not. Good question. So the question was, if you don't live on Hillhurst, will you get a notice? Will you get to vote? If you could go one more slide, maybe two more slides. That one right there. So this is a picture of the people that would be eligible to vote. It's properties that abut the right of way on Hillhurst between Ewing Drive and Dickerson Pike. There's about right at 48, 50 properties do that. Now, if you happen to be on a corner, I may have spoke too soon. I don't know where you live, but if you happen to be on the corner, and your property abuts Hillhurst, yes, you will get that opportunity. If you live on one of these side streets, then no doubt these people use Hillhurst every day, you will not be presented with that ballot. One of the considerations to that is we have some neighborhoods that, you know, you can imagine a really long cul-de-sac, and it's whole neighborhoods that have no way to use, have no way to their house other than to use a street like this, and yet they're not affected by high speeds like the people that actually live on that street are. So that's the reason for the policy, that we're only balloting the people that actually have you know, frontage on Hillhurst. You will not. That's right. Yep. Yeah. And you know, we struggle with the best way to do this. I'm glad you're here and you can have input, and that's really valuable to us. But we invite to meetings, and we invite balloting the same way, that it's the people there on that street. I will say one other thing about it is there's a couple of commercial properties down on this end. Typically, we don't send one to commercial properties either, or things like churches and things like that. We just send them to residential addresses. I think I cut someone off. I didn't mean to. Okay.
You know, if we live in a great nation,
Mm-hmm.
we share that street every day. So our safety is just as important as the people, the residents on Hillhurst.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me we should have a vote. I mean, yeah.
Did you say that we could go online and see a vote?
No, you cannot. No, the voting is limited to properties along Hillhurst, and I hear you completely.
number of votes, interest, 10 or 50%.
That's right. You would, yeah. If 2/3 of the votes that we receive are in favor of it, we would do the project. Just the residents who will get that card.
I live pretty close to here in the 4 weeks out of it, and people just, you know, so that's up there. He's on that. Somebody doesn't live in it. A lot of people take the truck coming up.
So I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's what your card will look like. The little you may can see the little QR code. You just point your phone at it and use it. There's also phone-in options if you're not used to that and want to call Metro Hub. You may be familiar with the Hub. You can call them. You can email us and get some assistance with that. But when you do the QR code, it takes you to the ballot page, which just looks like that. You're seeing about the whole thing. It's really just your name, your address, do you own the property. We do put a little code just to make sure you're not sneaking in your neighbor's mailboxes and grabbing their ballot and voting in their name. There's a little code that will be attached to the bottom right-hand corner and that goes in with your ballot as well. So you can't just not get a card and vote for your neighbor or something like that. And that's about it. And again, I didn't stress it, but one of the big advantages to this process is at the end of 6 weeks we're done. You know, whereas now they have 6 months to do a petition and they're still not getting them in. You know, it just takes forever. So this will really speed things up, and we'll know at the end of 6 weeks if we're going to do the project or not. I would say in select neighborhoods we do. By and large, we do not, and they go very smoothly. Every once in a while, you'll get a neighborhood that I don't know the best way to say it. I think, and I think this because we've heard this, it comes down to people just think it hurts resale value or it's aesthetic reasons or something like that. It's a different way of thinking, but we hear that sometimes, and that's typically the opposition to it. But you never know. You never know. I think more often than not, we just don't get responses. Just the same reason people don't vote in the national election. You know, they just I don't know why they don't. They just don't.
Yeah. Once that 6 week period holds, how long does it take you from ordering?
Good question. So at the end of 6 weeks, we would then, let's say it passes, and we will order the materials. That's been taking us 6 to 8 weeks just to get the rubber in, okay? Once that comes in, we'll go ahead and have a purchase order ready for our contractor to go out and install it. That may be another 4 weeks to get it on their schedule. The contractor that does it is the same group that restripes all of our streets and a lot of TDOT streets, so they stay pretty busy. The nice thing about that is by the time all this happens, we're getting into cooler weather, and they can't stripe in cold and wet, but they can put speed cushions down, and that's a lot of what they do on rainy days. So we can work this in, and I think there shouldn't be a big backlog of work at that time, hopefully by that time of the year. So the other nice thing about that is a contract that Metro already has. You know how long it takes if we got a contract from scratch. So we don't have to do that. They're ready. Everybody's on board.
So when will the card go?
Well, if we agree tonight that the plan's good, we're ready to send it out. We're ready. We will post the plans online, first of all, so that when people get a card, they have something to go look at. That could happen next week. The cards could probably go out next week. Yes, sir. There's a little, we always put a date up in the very top. Oh, I'm sorry if you can go back. Sorry, yeah, right up there in the very top right corner of the card, we just put a date, and we'll just go 6 weeks from that date. We will know probably in the first 3 to 4 days, because, you know, if you get something in the mail you're either going to go do it right then or not. You're probably not going to pick it up a week later and say, oh, I didn't do this. A few may. We might get a few trickling in, but the first couple of days we'll get a big response. And then the other thing, going back to your question, that can be really helpful is if you have neighborhood meetings, if you have a list of your neighbors' email addresses and you want to send something out, we can usually tell when something like that happens because we'll get a few more responses all right together as well. Some neighborhoods have newsletters and things like that. And so there's different ways to communicate that, and we can usually tell and we'll get a few more responses in, but we'll probably know a lot sooner than 6 weeks. We keep that in case we do have property owners that live far afield and we need time to get the mail there and so forth. And we're learning. Like I said, this is new to us too, so we may adjust it from there. We lost our baby. That's very understandable. It's hard to keep a little one still that long.
So this is the second community meeting. I know that other staff provided for my perspective. I feel like we all are ready for the down.
I will say this too. If we're balloting and someone pulls up the plans and says, hey, wait a minute, that does flood. I've got, that floods right there. Can we shift it? Yeah, we can shift it. What our interest is in balloting this is to make sure you all have had a chance to look at it and consider it. And that you're generally on board. This is a neighbor-driven process. You all applied into the process, and we've agreed with you. That doesn't mean everybody's in favor of it. It may not even be that it's a good idea for one reason or another. So if there are things we need to adjust, we're not balloting saying, I want it in this exact location as shown on the plans. And our plans have that little disclaimer on it. If we need to adjust things or move it, we can certainly do that. But, Very good. Well, that's terrific. Well, I will let you know before the cards go out. We'll go ahead and get those made up. I'll shoot you an email or something saying, hey, looks like Friday's going to be the day, so we would expect in the next day or so people will start having that. We'll need to get it up on the website and so forth, but it's easy enough. Anything else? I've got some cards over off of Thompson Lane in Southeast ready to go out, so they may be the first. We've actually got a couple that were kind of in y'all's position. In fact, a couple of them had already had this meeting, but we had not sent the petitions out yet because we knew it was coming any day. NDOT was going to make this change, and we didn't want to get out there and get everybody sweaty walking door to door in the heat when we were fixing to change it. So we've got a couple that are just ready to go, but who knows? This one could jump ahead of them. I don't know.
There's a lot of people in our neighborhood probably didn't know about it. I made the teacher just call me, Bible school. Like I said, I don't live directly on that. I live in the neighborhood. He informed me about it.
Yeah. Well, that's another change that we're doing, and Council Lady Toombs was very good to send those. She took the initiative and sent those cards out, and it's something that NDOT is doing now on all neighborhoods because it has been very much a neighbor-driven process, but we never knew who's getting invited and how did they know to show up, and these other people didn't know to show up. So that's why we're doing more of a formal process, but we can't canvass these whole neighborhoods with a bunch of mailers, and you guys are the ones paying for it, you know what I mean? So we're limiting it to the people that are going to vote for it. That's who we're going to let know. And we love it when people spread the information and more people come. We want that to happen, but that's just how we made the decision.
On the voting ballot,
For the, yeah.
So we have to formally create the Department of Transportation through the charter.
Public Works. Mm-hmm.
It's going to merge with Public Works.
There won't be a Public Works department anymore. It'll be NDOT, but the trash part of Public Works went to water. So Public Works did mainly two things. They picked up trash and they did right-of-way streets. So the trash went to water and the streets became NDOT.
Located here in Nashville.
And they're in the same building as, they essentially are the Public Works Department. It's just that trash split off and went to water. Everybody else is still, your brush collection, that's still Public Works, I'm pretty sure. Brush collection and guardrail maintenance and paving and bridges, all of that is still, it's NDOT, but it's the people that were Public Works. Yeah. And yeah, but that charter, that is a charter change that is on the ballot this time. That's right.
I'll say, for folks who didn't get a car because we don't live on Hillhurst, if you use email, I have my newsletter that comes out every couple of weeks, and I have it posted for this week in so if you're on my email list, you'll also know what's going on in the entire list. If you want to give me your email address before you leave.
Okay, I'm going to stop the meeting now. There's been some announcements in the room. Thank you for attending the Hillhurst Traffic Calming meeting.